right, shalom, shalom. First and foremost, as always, I like to give all praise, honor, and glory unto Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Rakha HaKodash. Double honors unto the apostles and elders of Great Millstone who rule well. Salutation to you, sincere, hopeful elect Hakim, pushing the word of Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Rakha HaKodash, in spirit and in truth. And, to my Arabai a lot. That's to say 144,000, which we hopefully elect brothers is striving to be a part of. So I want to play a little bit of this video where you have Colonel McGregor going into the war with being fought between Russia and Ukraine, and he mentioned some facts about the U.S. dollar, all right, that I thought were interesting, which, we know, us brothers know, everybody knows for that fact, for that matter. But let me play this, and then I'll edify with a couple scriptures.
In Budapest. It hasn't happened yet, but I think we're getting closer. But the reason it hasn't happened is because of us. And I think people are beginning to figure out that what kind of staying power do we have? Our financial system is very fragile. We can't sell our debt. We failed miserably in the bond market. Now we're turning to treasury bills and turning over the investments in every 4 to 6 weeks because we can't get anybody to invest in 10 years or 2 years. Nobody wants to buy it anymore. At some point, this locomotive, this debt-financed consumption model that we've used, which has led us to a $37 trillion national sovereign debt. Beyond that, there are probably another 10 to 20 trillion in debt in other places that Americans don't even know or appreciate. The fact of the matter is that we're nearing the end, and I think there's a sense that we're nearing the end of this debt-financed consumption system. And I think Putin has waited for this to happen. He's done everything he can, along with the rest of the world, to essentially shed debt. BRICS is all about offloading American and Western debt and being debt-free. It's about changing the whole monetary system to something that has real value. Currency that's backed by something real, gold, maybe other precious metals too. But the point is, everyone is trying to distance themselves from us. We are what we call patient zero, the original carrier of the plague. What's the plague? Well, the plague is the dollar. The dollar is poison. It's how we pass on our debt to people. So what are people doing? They are de-dollarizing. They're getting out from under it. What I'm trying to say is that we should understand the reality of where we are in the West, which no one wants to address. But I think President Putin understands that reality. I know that Xi does. And I know that Tokyo and Seoul have figured this out. And if you go to Northeast Asia and you talk to people there, they're simply waiting for us to leave because they know we can't afford to stay much longer. I think that's going to happen in Europe as well. But in the meantime, what do we get from Washington? Well, we get this political theater. We want to.
All right, so you heard it, man. You heard it. And that was beautifully put, in my opinion. Okay, the dollar is worth nothing. BRICS is looking to offload U.S. debt, which is pretty much the U.S. dollar. So those nations that join BRICS, are looking to be debt free. Okay. And like he said, people in the East, Southeast, are pretty much waiting for America to get out their countries because they know that America is not going to be able to sustain themselves being in those countries, occupying those countries. All right, America's military is spread thin, and it takes money, to run those operations. Okay, so Let me grab this here in Ecclesiastes 7 and 12. It says, "For wisdom is a defense, and money is a defense, but the excellency of knowledge is that wisdom giveth life to them that have it." All right, so let me read this in the NLT. It says, "Wisdom and money can get you almost anything, but only wisdom can save your life." Okay, so wisdom, in as it says in the NLT, or excuse me, in the KJV, is a defense, and money is a defense. All right, so money is supposed to be able to defend you. Okay, it's supposed to be able to, get you out of certain situations monetarily. Um, and that is especially true when that money is real, when it's backed by something. All right, now you can have like, for example, there's people. Oh snap! So like, there's people who are so-called wealthy. All right, they have all these assets and things like that, but really they're really in debt. They have learned how to make their debt work for them. Okay, they got all these credit cards. You know, um, they might be into real estate. All right, they might have a certain amount of money in the bank, but uh, they operate on debt. They just exchange debt. Okay, so here it is. You so called a millionaire, but you really have a bunch of debt. You have millions of Federal Reserve notes. All right, digital Federal Reserve notes, so to say, which is nothing but a debt note. All right, so you are millions of dollars in debt, so to say, simply because the U.S. dollar is not backed by gold, which is a true currency, a true wealth, should I say? And that's one of the things that Colonel McGregor said. Those BRICS nations, um, want a currency that's backed by an actual substance, gold or another precious metal. That's why raw earth, uh, minerals and metals and things of that nature are so important right now, because a lot of those raw earth minerals and metals are being used in AI technology, all right, and things of that nature currently. All right, so that's why there's a lot of investment in Africa, all right, certain places over in China and so on and so forth, because there's raw earth metals and minerals that are being discovered and mined that, all these nations want to get their hands on, which is going to force them to do trade. All right, but when you have America in the picture, America is they'll put tariffs on you. You see what Donald Trump is doing. All right, they'll put tariffs on you to where you can't export or import certain raw earth metals. All right, so um, the game is being played in which these other nations don't want America uh, in the game at all. Okay, so continuing on, Habakkuk 2 and verse 4, it says, "Behold, his soul which is lifted up is not upright in him." All right, Esau, Edom. All right, the soul that's within him is not an upright soul. All right, it's a perverse, crooked, corrupt, scoliosis soul. All right, so to say. It says, "But the just shall live by his faith." All right, so the just, us hopeful elect, that's what we do. We live by faith. All right. It says, "Yea, also, because he transgresseth by wine." All right, those philosophies and doctrines and democracy and all that. That's how Esau transgresses. All right, that's what he promotes in the earth. Um, you know, he'll come with a contract and a treaty, have you sign it, and then break it. All right, look at the situation with the so-called peace treaty with Gaza and the small hats or the Israelis. That's been broken already. All right, you've had 5 or 6 Palestinians get killed since they signed that so-called peace deal earlier this week. All right. So Esau transgresses by wine. All right. He is a proud man, neither keepeth at home. All right. There's 800 and like 40 something bases, U.S. military bases around the world. That's a great example of him not keeping at home. Which really, Esau as a nation, their home is the Caucasus Mountains, or Petra. Okay, their original home is Petra, which is the caves, man. Okay, just desert, a rocky land. Um, and is as deaf and cannot be satisfied, but gathereth unto him all nations and heapeth unto him all people. All right, so it's not um, uncommon to see a bunch of heathens in Esau's military, and that's how it's always been for Esau. He's always recruited the other nations to join his military. They did that in Rome. All right, the Greeks here in Babylon the Great. You know, up here in the Northwest, they got the military base. They got a Navy base up here. Military, Army base, Air Force base. All right, and when you travel amongst or around those military bases. All right, me and certain brothers up here used to be in the military, and we can testify that you go on base, you see that, man. You see people that you ain't never seen in your life. Afghanis and people from Guam and Hawaii, Africa, and Europe. All kind of heathens. Australians and just straight up heathens. Um, with a U.S. Army uniform on. You know, so that is how it is a great example of Esau not keeping at home. Okay. It says, "Shall not all these take up a parable against him, and a taunting proverb against him, and say, Woe to him that increaseth that which is not his, how long? And to him that ladeth himself with thick clay." All right, that's the point. All right. Esau has pretty much took on a heavy debt. All right, because that word clay in the Hebrew is ibatyat, which means debt. So there's a heavy, thick debt that Esau has brought upon himself, that America has brought upon itself through uh, this fiat currency. All right, printing more and more Federal Reserve notes. All right, and none of those Federal Reserve notes is actually backed by a substance, okay, a valuable substance, in particular gold. All right, and so you've used this monopoly money to fund all these wars, and now, as they say, the chickens are coming home to roost. All right, let me read this in the NLT. It says, verse 6, "But soon their captors will taunt them, they will mock them, saying, What sorrow awaits you thieves?" All right, because what has Esau done? What has America done? America has gone around the world and stolen everything. All right, look at the fact that nations were forced to trade oil using a petrodollar. If they wanted to trade oil, they had to utilize the petrodollar, the U.S. dollar to trade oil that comes from their own country. Okay, in which what that does is that they're getting robbed doing that. Okay, because they can have a currency that's more valuable, or what's the word? Uh, they can have a currency that's worth more than a dollar. Okay, as far as the exchange rate. All right, but being that they gotta use a dollar, now they're losing money converting their you know doing that conversion. They're losing money just to be able to ship that oil to another nation that isn't even American. You know, so it says they will mock them, saying, "What sorrow awaits you, thieves?" All right, because that's what Esau does is rape, rob, and murder. All right. It says, now you will get what you deserve. You've become rich by extortion. But how much longer can this go on? Okay, so this can't go on for too much longer. All right, the thievery that Babylon the Great has, you know, done to the planet Earth initially. Let me see. Verse 7, it says, in the KJV, it says, shall they not rise up suddenly that shall bite thee, and awake and shall vex thee, and thou shalt be for booties unto them? In the NLT, it says, suddenly your debtors will take action. They will turn on you and take all you have while you stand trembling and helpless. All right. So what's going to happen is, America is going to be liquidated before it's liquidated with fire. All right. This place is going to collapse. This financial system here in America is going to collapse, and then, these nations is actually going to put the fiery icing on the cake, which is going to be by way of those nuclear missiles. All right. Zephaniah 1 and verse 11. It says, "How ye inhabitants of Maktesh, for all the merchant people are cut down, all they that bear silver are cut off." All right, so looking up this word Maktesh in the Hebrew, it comes from H4389, Makatash. Makatash, it says a mortar or deep hollow, a hollow or valley, evidently in Greater Jerusalem area. It says a place in Jerusalem. Now, back in the days, if I'm not mistaken, it used to tell you that let me go to this real quick. Yeah, it used to tell you, if I'm not mistaken, that this was like a yeah, if I'm not mistaken, it used to tell you that it was like a place where they did a lot of trade at, if I'm not mistaken. You know what I'm saying? It was the ancient world's Wall Street, so to say. All right, so pertaining to Wall Street currently, back in verse 11, it says, "How ye inhabitants of Maktesh, for all the merchant people are cut down, all they that bear silver are cut off." All right, so in the NLT, it says, "Wail and sorrow, all you who live in the market area." All right, so there you go. For all the merchants and traders will be destroyed. Okay, so, America deals heavily with that, the Wall Street or S&P 500, Dow Jones, all that. Okay, eventually that's going to come to a screeching halt. All right, we already have the government shut down. All right, so um, eventually, it's going to come to a complete stop. All right, it says, and it shall come to pass at that time that I will search Jerusalem with candles and punish the men that are settled on their lees, that say in their heart, the Lord will not do good, neither will he do evil. And that's the sentiment of a lot of Israelites. They just think America is going to continue on as normal. All right. But they themselves will be punished. All right. They're going to be judged. All right. Whether they know they're Israelite or not. It says, therefore, their goods shall become a booty, and the houses of desolation. They shall also build houses, but not inhabit them. They shall plant vineyards, but not drink the wine thereof. All right, so you got a lot of our people that are invested in a future here in Babylon the Great, but there will be no future here. All right, you see Jacob's trouble. We're in the midst of Jacob's trouble. All right, you got ICE agents just busting down people's doors, arresting so-called immigrants, snatching babies out the house, so on and so forth. All right, they don't. Hey, like it says in Second Ezra, they should be like madmen, sparing none. All right, verse 14 it says, "The great day of the Lord Yahweh is near. It is near. It hasteth greatly. Even the voice of the day of Yahweh, the mighty men shall cry there bitterly." All right, that day is a day of wrath, a day of trouble and distress, a day of wasteness and desolation, a day of darkness and gloominess, a day of clouds and thick darkness, a day of the trumpet and the alarm against the fenced cities and against the high towers. Okay, so it's not going to be a day in which people that was expecting to get raptured think it's going to be. All right, people that was expecting to get raptured last month on the 24th or whatever day that was, they clearly have not read Zephaniah. Okay. Verse 17 it says, "And I will bring distress upon men that they will walk like blind men, because they have sinned against Yahweh, and their blood shall be poured out as dust, and their flesh as the dung." Okay. This is another point right here. Verse 18 it says, "Neither their silver nor their gold shall be able to deliver them in the day of Yahweh's wrath." All right. So in the day that, Yahweh, allows, his wrath to be felt and known and present in the earth, it don't matter what type of silver, gold, precious metal, Federal Reserve notes you have, that's not going to deliver you. And that goes for our people as well as, these heathen. Okay? The Lord is not going to be appeased with, a certain amount of gold, and you give that to the angel to get to the Heavenly Father, and the Lord allows you exemption from, bullshit that you've done. All right. In particular, I'm talking about the Edomites. All right. Or the hell that they brought upon the world, because it tells you in Maccabees, First Maccabees, the first chapter, that when they got in power, evils were multiplied in the earth. So from, that time in particular till now, you know how much evil Esau has done in the earth. All right, the bullshit he did, that you read about in the book of Maccabees. All right, all that hell that was brought upon us by way of the Greeks, the Hellenization of the Israelites, and then followed up by the terror of the Roman Empire. Okay, and then the Renaissance. All right, the slavery, the chattel slavery, transatlantic slave trade. All right, even unto now, Jim Crow laws and all, Jacob's trouble. All right, the Lord is not going to let all that go. All right, just because Esau could attempt to bribe the Heavenly Father with gold and silver. All right, uh, it says, neither shall their gold neither their silver nor their gold shall be able to deliver them in the day of Yahweh's wrath, but the whole land shall be devoured by the fire of his jealousy. For he shall make even a speedy riddance of all them that dwell in the land. And this first and foremost was talking about Israelites. All right. Just to, qualify that. This is first and foremost talking about, wicked Israelites. But it goes for Esau as well, and the heathen, the silver and the gold that, and really the silver and the gold in the earth belongs to Yahweh Hashem Yahweh Shai. So nobody is going to be able to, use that, those precious metals as a, what's the word I'm looking for? As a, a recompense or, try to cut a deal. Hey, Donald Trump, and he's all about his deals, right? You try to cut a deal with the Heavenly Father to not go into slavery. No, that's not going to work, man. All right. But, like BRICS, like I mentioned, is, those nations joining BRICS are trying to find a system in which has a currency that's actually backed by something. All right. And even with that, even if BRICS and their currency is backed by actual gold and silver, the Lord is going to destroy that whole system. Okay, because the Lord's wrath is going to be exact, in the earth. These nations gotta be completely dismantled and destroyed. All right, and a righteous system, a righteous theocracy is going to be established in the earth, spearheaded by Yahweh Hashem Yahweh Shai and the Israelites. Okay. So I just wanted to bring that out, man. Patient zero, all right, the dollar is the reason for the nations pretty much about to go to war, man. All right, it's a new system that the nations are flocking to, and America is trying to keep the old system propped up and force that dollar down people's throats. And these nations ain't going for it. All right. Which is, World War III. So, Rosh Hashanah, brothers was edified. Till next time, Shalom.